Welcome to the SWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with one of our new guest hosts, Alicia Kacho, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. She comes to us with a background in fitness, but not necessarily always that background. So Alicia, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me on the show. How are you?
I'm phenomenal as always. So I'd love if you kind of introduce yourself. What are you up to now? And then we'll kind of rewind back in time and ask a little bit about what you were like as a kid and all the lovely stuff along the way. So what are you up to these days?
Sure, sounds good. So I'm an online fitness coach, as you mentioned. I work with busy working professionals who are kind of tired of putting their health on the back burner to prioritize their health and wellness, because I understand that. I've been there, done that, had a really hard time prioritizing fitness while building a business, even when I was working a 9-to-5. So I'm here to help those people that are having those struggles.
Sounds good. And I love if we go back in time and talk a little bit about Alicia as a kid. So what was Alicia like growing up, kind of bouncing around, curious kid, adventurous kid, troublemaker, that sort of thing? Or what were you like as a kid?
So I was the athletic kid. It was just me and my sister. So I have an older sister. She's 3 years older than me. She was the one that was always like head in the books, studying. I was the one that was addicted to sports, and that's all I really cared about in school. So I honestly, during high school and even in middle school growing up, like I had undiagnosed ADHD, which I found out only a few years ago. So I had a really hard time in school, had a really hard time understanding, didn't like school in general, didn't really pay attention, was not motivated to be there. So sports is kind of what got me through that, and what got me through school in general, graduating, was having sports to hold me accountable to making sure that I was staying on track with, getting good grades to make sure that I could still stay in sports. So that was me in school. My parents were always like super supportive regardless, but I could say that I definitely was not amazing during the high school days, but as I got into school outside of high school, when I was actually interested in it, I was a lot better.
Sounds good. So those younger years, like what were the sports that you gravitated to? Were there any particular ones that like you were most fond of?
Yeah, so I played volleyball from grade 6 until grade 12. So it was like constant from the fall to winter. We were in volleyball, going to tournaments. When I wasn't playing volleyball in school, I was playing in the off season, so club volleyball, and that goes from from like winter into spring, summer. So I was like constantly on the go, playing volleyball. I did a little bit of track as well, wasn't amazing at it. Tried doing hurdles one time, that didn't go very well. But otherwise, yeah, it was pretty much just volleyball I was kind of obsessed with.
Sounds good. So as you're kind of in the high school realm, so you're playing volleyball quite frequently, both on and off season, and you said your parents were quite supportive of you. So what were your thoughts, their thoughts, in terms of what you would do as a future career? Was like being a professional volleyball player in the cards, or anything like that, or what was that path like?
So in terms of like volleyball, my parents were supportive in it, but they were also like, I felt like we had a very big comparison game when it came to like my sister and then me, because she was always like the one that had her head in the books, really good grades, knew what she wanted to do after school, and then I was the one that was like, I had no idea. Except I kind of started getting into the gym in high school. Around grade 11 is when I started my own fitness journey, and I knew that I wanted to be some kind of a personal trainer, but I also knew that I wanted to get into some kind of healthcare work. So I didn't know if I wanted to do, like which one I wanted to do, but there was always that little ideal in my head. My goal right outside of high school was to go and do open studies, upgrade, and do nursing. And then from there, I ended up not doing nursing and kind of filtered into actually going to school for personal training. But I realized that after I ended up going to school, didn't really enjoy it, didn't even go to nursing school. And then I was like, okay, I want to do personal training, because that's when my fitness background really started to arise, was after high school.
Sounds good. I'd love, before we got there, to talk a little bit about kind of that sisterly competition, because I know sometimes when you have an older sibling and they're kind of like the poster child that is doing everything correctly, and then you're like, not so much. Can you talk a little bit about kind of that experience, and how does that kind of weave into that journey into healthcare and then ultimately fitness?
Yeah, so I mean, being the kid that was in sports, I was always like the expensive kid, because having to pay for tournaments, going to different cities, making sure that I was going to volleyball every evening, or not every evening, but a few times a week, whereas my sister was just going through school. She had a part-time or full-time job, I can't really remember, in school, so she was always like the goody kid, and I was just like the one that played sports. So what I ended up doing from there on was, I did apply to nursing school, but then found out that my grades weren't good enough to get in. So that's when I decided to do open studies, and I ended up moving to Edmonton for that. As soon as I graduated, which my parents were not super fond of, the idea of moving away as soon as I graduated, because for one, I didn't know anything about, being adult. I didn't really know anything about money. So I just kind of like went and hoped for the best. And they were not very happy with that decision, and I ended up moving home 4 months later because it just didn't end up working out. So they were right all along, of course. And then from there, instead of going to nursing school, it was still kind of in the back of my mind, but that's when my fitness journey really started, was when I came back home. I had a really hard time the 4 months that I was in Edmonton, went through a lot of like depression and stuff like that, and fitness really helped me get out of that. It helped me get working full time, and that's actually when I started doing healthcare aid, which still made me want to do nursing. So I was very indecisive at that time as to like, oh, do I want to do this, or do I want to do nursing? Do I want to upgrade? So I ended up just working for like a year and a half to really figure out what I wanted to do from there. And I got into powerlifting, which is what really uprose my my fitness journey. I did a couple of competitions, and then from there I was like, okay, now I know that this is what I want to do, because I kind of had a coach when I was doing my powerlifting competition, and she was coaching other people, and I got to see what she did as a personal trainer. I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to help people reach their goals and turn my passion into a career. So from there, I ended up moving to Edmonton again. Parents were like, are you sure you want to do this time? It didn't work out last time. But it ended up working out. I got my diploma in personal training, and then haven't really looked back since.
Sounds good. And I'd love if you elaborate a little bit more on kind of the journey to Edmonton, and then kind of that challenge, and then the journey back again, because there must have been a lot of, well, I don't know if they're memories or associations during that time, because you mentioned a little bit of a depression. Like, how was kind of like your mindset during the time? And you also mentioned that sports and fitness kind of helped you out of that. I'd love if you kind of share a little bit about what uplifted you out of that part of your life as well.
Yeah, I think so. When I went to Edmonton the first time for school, I did open studies, like I mentioned, and I think a lot of kids go through this, where they just go through that like big party phase when they first go to school for the first time, and I took it too far my first semester, and I ended up moving home because I just kind of felt like a failure, not really, and that stemmed from a lot of like childhood issues as well, but I didn't really feel good about myself. I gained a lot of weight as well, obviously, if you're drinking that much, not exercising. So moved home, ended up getting really heavy into the gym again, started feeling really good about myself. So course, that increased my confidence in the gym, but it also increased my confidence in like helping other people and inspiring other people to start that journey on their own as well, without even being a coach yet. So once like my friends saw me doing it, my family members saw me doing it, they asked me questions, they wanted to start getting into the gym. So it was really inspiring and motivating to make me want to actually pursue that as a career. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, and I'd love if you're able to recall, like, so you just moved back. You mentioned you felt like failure, you gained a lot of weight, and we're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. And then maybe in your head, there's that first moment where you say, I got to get to the gym. Like, what was that like? Was it automatic, like, I just have to do it, or was there like an epiphany or some sort of revelation that got you there? Or like, walk us through that, if you recall.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I had already been going to the gym before moving to Edmonton, it was something that was really part of my life before, like when I was in high school. Again, helped me with confidence, growing up with low self-esteem. So I knew that it made me feel a lot better about myself. I knew that it made me feel a lot better in general because we love endorphins. So I just knew in general, getting back into the gym was something that I needed to get back into my routine to make sure that I could start moving forward in other areas of my life. Because if I don't feel good about myself or where I'm at, then I'm not going to do well, say like in a career, if I already have low confidence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so it seems like it was already part of the past life, and you knew how good it felt. So it's just kind of reconnecting with that part of you that you loved before, and you kind of lost when you were trying to do something else, and now you realize, okay, this is something that I do want to do. And then you mentioned that you found a coach, and you kind of saw what she was doing, and then said, oh, yeah, that's something that I want to do. And were there any particular like courses or certifications? Because I mean, the whole fitness world, there's a lot to get through. There are kind of online courses. There's all the college and university ones there. What was your journey to kind of pick and choose the right ones that fit you?
Yeah, so there was a ton of different options. I was looking into actually taking a program at GPRC, so Grand Prairie Regional College. It's only 2 hours away from my hometown. And that one was a full like 2-year diploma. And then I found this other program that you can do in Edmonton. It's also a 2-year diploma, but it's condensed. So it was actually only 8 months long. You also get your certification through that, and then you get some practicum hours as well. And it's a lot easier to get into the field quicker by doing that condensed course. So that's the one that I went with. And it was really good, honestly. I wish that I knew before, though, that you didn't have to go to school to be a personal trainer. But I realized that after, when I started working in the field and in my first commercial gym.
Right. But was that experience still helpful? Like, what sort of learnings would you take? So if you were kind of to go back and give young Alicia some SWIKE, would you tell her not to take those programs? Or you say, you know what, it was still a good learning experience for you?
I think for me personally, it was a good experience because I learn a lot better when I'm in a class setting and I'm learning with and from other people. And I have other classmates to bounce ideas off of, not the most amazing self-learner when it comes to like just doing a certification online because ADHD. So I would say that it was still a really good experience for me. But now if I talk to people and they're asking me basically like, what should I do? Should I do my certification? Should I go to school? And I'm like, basically I just let them know, like, it depends how quickly you want to get into the field, really. Do you want to go to school for 2 years, or would you prefer to learn with hands-on experience after just taking a certification? There's so many different routes, and it just depends on the person as to what would be best for you.
And I'm wondering if you can kind of walk us through like your process to, I guess, finding your first client. So I guess there's clients, you were a personal trainer with like another gym, and then your first client, I guess, on your own as Alicia. Would you be able to walk us through those different instances?
Yeah, for sure. So I worked at, my first personal training job ever was right after I got out of school. I started doing my practicum with Good Life in Edmonton, the Clairview location. And I worked there for about 8 months. So basically what you have to do is prospect when you work in a commercial gym. So people that just sign up at the gym or they're doing tours, sometimes they'll either ask for a personal trainer or you'll get like a free consultation with your sign up. So that's how I would get clients at the box gym, or you would walk around on the gym floor and talk to people and prospect them and bring them on as new clients. So I worked there for about 8 months, and then I took some time off from in-person training. I did serving for a little bit, and then I actually started a full-time job in Edmonton doing administration and marketing for a co-working space. And that's what led me to do entrepreneurship. So during COVID, the co-working space, we ended up bringing in a bunch of gym equipment and built a gym within the co-working space. And from there, I knew that I wanted to start my own training business. So I took on some in-person clients there. So that was my first time finding my own clients outside of, having somebody to help me and guide me along the way. And a lot of those clients were the people that worked within the co-working space.
Sounds good. And was it as straightforward as it sounds in terms of like they were all, the co-working space was setting up the gym, and you are a personal trainer, so therefore, hey, can I have access to the gym and get clients? Was it that easy, or was there more of a challenge to that process?
No, it was pretty simple because like my boss at the time had already knew that I was a personal trainer, that I still wanted to pursue that. I just didn't know like how I wanted to pursue it. So she was really supportive of the idea. She wanted to create like a more health and wellness environment within the co-working space. So we kind of partnered and collabed together on how we could make that happen. And then I offered our co-working space guests and members discounted rates on personal training. And then from there, got my first few clients. And then that actually led me to doing online training, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit as well.
Sure, yeah. So if you continue that, then you're in this co-working space where everybody's in the office, and then my presumption is that COVID hit, and people were not so much in the office. So is that kind of the transition from in-person to online, or was there something else in between?
That's exactly what happened. So COVID hit. I had 5 clients, I think, in person. While still working my full-time job. Don't mind me there. And so when COVID hit, I was like, okay, well, I can't train you in person anymore. So I guess we're switching you to online until we're allowed to open the gym again. So we ended up doing that. And I realized how much more I loved online training, how many more people I could reach doing online training. There's no cap on how much money you can make doing online training as well. Because in-person training, you can only train 7 to 8 people a day max before you're like burnt out. You could train more, but I wouldn't, because that would be too exhausted.
Sure.
So that's how I ended up switching to fully online training. And I did that probably for about 6 months while still working my full-time job. And then in July of 2021, I left my 9-to-5 and I pursued online fitness coaching full-time.
Sounds good. And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that journey. So for some people, it's like the scary thought of, oh my gosh, I don't have a safety net of a full-time job with steady income coming in. Was that a pretty challenging thought for you? Or is it like, you know what, I'm gung-ho on this entrepreneurship thing and really love what I'm doing, so there's no problem on that side? Where were you kind of on the spectrum?
It was definitely one of the scariest decisions I've ever made. Quitting my job to do something that was a little bit more risky for sure. Because I think at the time when I had left my full-time job, I only had 10 clients or something like that, like online. So it was like probably just enough to cover my bills for the month. But at that point I was like, I'm working so much trying to build my business, and so much I actually had to cut down my hours at my 9-to-5 so that I could start building my business. And from there I was still working way too much, like 15-16 hour work days, and I was overwhelmed and exhausted. So I was like, I either have to pull the plug on one of these, and of course it was my 9-to-5 so that I could pursue fitness coaching full time. I did have a business coach though that I started with in July or in June. So she helped me build up that confidence to leave, because I knew that I had guidance to make sure that I was successful.
Sounds good. So just like you're a personal trainer for someone in the gym, you have a coach that's kind of your professional trainer, your business coach for the online world. So I think that's
Exactly.
great and amazing. And obviously that kind of brings us a little bit up to now, where now you have a thriving online business, and you're now helping working professionals who are kind of stuck. Well, ideally also in that online world where they're putting up their health in the back seat, but now they want to bring it back to the front seat. So could you walk us through a little bit about what you typically do with folks in like a session, or how you would typically help folks?
Yeah, so I'll start kind of from the beginning. Basically, what I do is a client will come to me, or I might even find somebody online just by networking and talking, and they will apply to work with me. From there, I'll go through their application, see if it's a good fit, and then we'll jump on a call and again go through some of the details as to like what their goals are, how I can help, and from there we really have a good understanding of if we should work together. From there, once we get them off that call, I get them signed up, and then I get them to fill out a very detailed intake form that gives me a whole rundown on their background, their like their medical background, their exercise history, nutrition, their routine, down to a T, so that I have all the information I need to build a program based off of their life and their goals. And then I do the customized nutrition and the customized workouts for them, give them access to my training app, and from there we get them going towards their goals.
It sounds like a very personalized approach where there's not like kind of a cookie cutter one size fits all. It's very tailored, as you said, based on your background. This is the type of nutrition that you'd recommend. This is the type of like exercise regime you'd recommend, and there's probably other self-care stuff that they need to manage as well.
Exactly, yeah. Everything is very, very customized to every single person. I like to think of everybody as a different science experiment when it comes to coaching them, because everyone's different, right? Everyone has different bodies, everyone has different goals, and everyone progresses at different rates. So
For sure.
one program that might work for you won't work for me, so everything has to be customized down to a T to make sure it works.
For sure. And hopefully we'll get some more updates in terms of how it's going and how this online business is flourishing. But I'd love if you went back and shared some of your SWIKE, the stuff I wish I knew earlier that you shared. Young Alicia, I don't know what are the major areas. So obviously that time in Edmonton would probably be an important one. Maybe sometime before in high school as you were trying to figure things out, and maybe a couple other times. So what are some SWIKE that you give yourself, the younger you?
I think for one would be giving myself more compassion. So if I were to like go back and talk to my younger self, to not be so hard on myself and to give myself more compassion, because even now, growing up as an adult, I'm very hard on myself, and I know that stems from childhood and being really hard on myself in school. So that is one thing. Second thing is that you don't need a degree to be successful. A lot of people think that you have to, follow the norm of going to school, graduating, going to college or university, settling down, having kids, which is like that small town mindset that we talked about a little bit. And I did the total opposite, and look at where I am. I'm happy, I'm thriving, and we're doing good. So that's something that I would tell myself before is like, you don't have to go to do open studies, you don't have to go upgrade, just go get a certificate or just teach yourself. There's so many resources out there now. You can teach yourself online as well. So that's another big thing that I would tell myself. And I think just also not playing the comparison game as much. So that was something that I did as a young kid so much. In high school, even in middle school, I compared myself to all the other kids. Wondered why I couldn't keep up as well in school, made myself feel like crap about it, Even in volleyball, like I would always compare myself to other people. Growing up, I did it. In fitness, I compared myself to everybody as a personal trainer, and everyone always gets that, oh God, what's the word that I'm thinking of? when you compare
Imposter
yourself
syndrome?
to imposter syndrome. Thank you. Everyone always gets imposter syndrome, and that was something that I struggled with a lot at the beginning of my journey as an online fitness coach. Was like, there's so many other ones out there. What makes me special? So playing that comparison game is huge when it comes to your own success and your own confidence as well in your field. So that's something that I would tell myself when I were younger as well.
For sure. So maybe we'll have you back and do some deeper dive episodes into some of those ones. But what I took for that is, well, there are a few degrees where you do a few occupations where you do need a degree, and that's because they're like professionally regulated, like the doctors, the lawyers, accountants. You actually need a degree from that. But other than that, like that's actually a relatively small number of roles out there. But that's kind of the typical one. So I'd encourage folks to actually explore a little bit more than those basic ones, and see there's so many other things that they could potentially do. And then that whole comparison game, that's probably a whole series of episodes on its own with imposter syndrome and things like that. But it's definitely one where that's kind of the culture and society that we live in. There's always a bit of comparison, but the more that you can step out of that, the more successful you'll be, because I do believe there is one person that you should compare yourself to, and that is yourself yesterday. And as long as you're better than that person, then you're good. Right? So thanks so much, Alicia, for sharing your SWIKE and your journey. Where can folks connect with you online? And obviously we'll share it in the show notes, but if you want to share a little bit of that. And then what are some future aspirations that we might look forward to hearing from you in the future?
For sure, yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I do have a website, and my handle is KSW Training for all socials. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, so it's just my first and last name, Alicia Kacho. And my future aspirations, I want to continue building my roster, so just gaining more clients for myself. And then once I've hit a specific goal there, my goal is to actually hire a team to work under me. So some assistant coaches, probably 3 to 4, a VA, somebody to help me with marketing, so that I don't have to do all of the work. And then once I've got that team built, my goal is to do business coaching, because I'm very, very passionate about the business side of what I do as well. So I would one day like to switch from the fitness coaching to the business aspect of things and teach other coaches how to do the same.
Perfect. So if you're a busy professional that wants to take control of their health, or if you're maybe an aspiring coach that wants to get into this online personal training, maybe you can reach out to Alicia and connect. So thanks so much, Alicia, again for sharing your SWIKE and your story, and hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me, and have a great day.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us on the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Lukidanu, Lukidanu, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.